Kind of looks like, you know, the Preferiti. The Preferiti, is that what they call them?
This may be the time to ask for comments from the public.
I just wanted to say this makes me nostalgic for the way that things used to be 4 or 5 years ago. We'd have meeting after meeting and no public.
Okay, going into public works items. Jim, you've got a couple, 3 items for us. First one, Pendleton Woolen Mills.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. The agenda item that you have before you is related to the way we calculate rates for Pendleton Woolen Mills. And we all know how important Pendleton is to our community. They're our largest employer, and they have always been a great partner with us. And we've been working with them on multiple issues, including the agenda items, the first 2 agenda items that we're going to talk about tonight. So we appreciate Pendleton Woolen Mills, and really what these proposed ordinance changes do is they change the way we calculate rates for Pendleton, and specifically the first one, the wastewater ordinance that we're talking about right now. It gets Pendleton in line with the way other industries' rates are calculated, and it's fair and equitable for Pendleton in the city. And right now, Pendleton, their rates are calculated based on flow, and all other industry in the city their rates are calculated based on loading. So loading is basically the stuff that's in the effluent or the discharge that goes into the sewer lines. We have some terms for that. It's called biochemical oxygen demand, and then total suspended solids. So that's the stuff that is discharged, and we think that this will be very innocuous to either way. I don't think Pendleton's rates will go down significantly, and we're still waiting on quite a bit of sampling data before we know for sure as far as what their rates will do. But they should see a small decrease in their wastewater rates. Our recommended action, our recommended council action will be to read the title only and to pass, post, and publish in the usual manner. And that'll be for next week. And with that, I'd just like to open it up for any questions you may have on the wastewater ordinance changes.
Brent?
How is it that Pendleton got a different rate classification? Was it just the way we defined the type of industry, or?
Yeah, quite some time ago, they actually used to discharge into the Columbia River, and they had many issues with ecology. Obviously, the permitting and things required for that are very significant. And they made some changes to where they discharge to our system now. And at that time, there was a connection fee that they paid, and during the negotiations, I'm not sure exactly how that all came about, but during those negotiations, they were put on this flow-based rate system, and I think it was at the time they wanted to cover some of the development charges, because I think the development charges were less significant to them than they probably could have been. So I think there was this thought to get them on the flow-based rate.
Paul?
If I might, my memory is that the city staff at the time was more worried about flow capacity than they were about some other issues. And it turns out that flow was not really the issue that I think people were worried about. That's my memory of it anyway. Okay. But Trevor may remember better than I.
Dave?
Is this only being applied to Pendleton?
Well, the actual ordinance that's existing now specifically refers to Pendleton, and like I said, they're the only industry that is charged based on flow. So yeah, this is specifically tailored towards Pendleton, and it gets us in line with all what the other industry is paying, and And we think it's fair and equitable across the board to change them to the loading base.
Does it actually refer to Pendleton by name?
Yes,
Yeah.
it did.
That's never a good idea.
It's not always saying that everything done in the past was correct.
Yeah.
So it's already been extended then to other firms like Exterior Wood.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
It won't refer to Pendleton by name when we're done, right?
No.
Okay.
Other questions from council on the two items? One of, some of the, couple things that aren't going to show up in this presentation in here, obviously, we are very interested in making sure that we do whatever we can and whatever legally we can do and the appropriate things we can do to help Pendleton on their manufacturing side stay competitive and keep those jobs here in the community. So this is one of those efforts towards doing it. One of the other things that this also helps set up for is for them to completely take offline their treatment facility in the future, which is, some of you may not even realize that one to the south side of Highway 14 across from their plant itself is not a city sewage lagoon. It's actually Pendleton's treatment facility. And our hope is that at some point, and the hope for Pendleton is at some point they can basically cease using that facility and go ahead and mothball it and then move it into dismantling, saving them some additional dollars from the state to ecology itself, but also being able to turn all of that property, which I believe it's 21, just short of 22 acres, back into usable, heavy industrial property that it's zoned for currently. So it's kind of has some other legs to it in addition to this. This just helps set it up so that it's a competitive rate for them and quite frankly, a more appropriate rate that they should have been paying. Okay. CDBG grant funds, sidewalk improvements.
Yeah, Your Honor, have a water ordinance as well.
Oh, I was
high
combining
use-
the two of those together. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. So this agenda item is another ordinance change, and it's related really to water rates for industrial users. And again, the mayor talked about economic development, and this stemmed from our look at Pendleton. And again, we worked with Pendleton on this issue, and like I say, they are our highest water user right now. So this is more of an economic development and retention type adjustment to monthly rates for high water usage. And as we increase the amount of water we deliver to a particular customer, our cost actually goes down per unit of water that we deliver. So it is fair and equitable, and we did some research to see where those rates might come in and how that might help Pendleton retain their spot here in our community, but also to look at future economic development if a large customer would move into our city. So more on a monthly basis than just looking at what they can save up front on system development charges. The lower revenue that results from these changes will have an insignificant effect on existing rates. So I just wanted to mention that. And you should have a table in your packet that identifies the changes, and it shows existing high use rates and the proposed new rates with the ordinance change. And so our recommended action for next week will be to read the ordinance by title only and pass, post, and publish in the usual manner. And with that, I'd like to open up questions about that particular ordinance change.
This applies to all water users, not just water manufacturers?
That is correct. It's high rate or high use customers, yes.
Starts at 0 and goes to
Well,
over.
there's something in municipal law they call, or actually any law called special legislation. You gotta watch for that.
But this, actually Pendleton is the only one right now, the only industrial customer that reaches this threshold
But we
in
want-
our city.
To make it a little more defensible, we want more
We do.
If the port is successful in what they're trying to do down at Steigerwald, there hopefully will be some additional high-tech companies down there that are gonna outstrip what we currently produce, so. Joyce?
Well, I find it a little bit incongruous with home user rates that, and then we give higher users less money.
Right.
And we charge us more if we use more. Clarify that for me. Will this affect home usage at all, or?
No, this will not. These are only high use customers that we're talking about. And like I said earlier, you know, when we deliver water to anybody, we have a certain cost associated with that. But when we deliver it to a larger user like Pendleton Woolen Mills, our actual cost to produce and deliver that water actually decreases. And so we took a look at it. We've been looking at economic development. We've been looking at rates in particular. And we took a look at it, and our cost associated with that delivery of water is substantially less. We will get into cost of service evaluation later in the year. We do have some money in the budget for that, and we will look at customer classes for residential and commercial and high use and things like that.
Thank you.
Jennifer?
Yes, I think this is a very interesting ordinance to me. I look at this and I think, you know, it's very regionally specific. You look at other parts of the country that are suffering droughts and other things like that, and there would be no way that they could pass something like this. I think it's interesting, and I feel blessed to live in this part of the country where we have these resources to provide and be able to discount for larger users. So, that's all. Just a comment.
Let's let the chair decide who's going to speak next. I try and do this based on as I get you recognized. Paul, go ahead.
Do we have an obligation to provide water to anybody who wants it? If somebody came in and wanted 3 million gallons a day, could we say no?
Well, I think it just depends on our ability to serve. So, you know, if we have the infrastructure in place and we can produce that amount of water and deliver that to them, then I think we would, you know, we would decide based on that. If we could provide that service, I think we'd all want a developer to move in that, you know, was a high user.
I'm going at it a little differently than that. I mean, we've spent a lot of money on water infrastructure recently to increase capacity and to increase delivery in various parts of the city. And what my concern is that if somebody came in and said, okay, I need a lot of water, that we would have to spend a lot of money to create the infrastructure to deliver that water, and the SDCs wouldn't even come close to paying for it. And so that's my concern. And so do we have a way of keeping that from happening?
Well, I think we have an inherent way of doing that. We can't produce any more water than what we have permits to produce it for. And we can't increase the production of our water in such a way that we get to avoid going back to the state in order to increase our well capacities and our ability to pull water. I think the shorter answer to your question is, yes, we can say no. We would probably try and approach it through a development agreement with them to find some way to bring that water capacity online, even if it means that we're buying it from our neighbors through a cooperative to be able to pull from their water service as well. Would it be fair for us to charge off whatever the cost is of bringing that capacity together for what they would need versus what we can provide? That's a business decision that they would have to make, but we would certainly probably make that offer. And I think there's something to be said for making that offer looking into the future as well. If it was something that was stable that we could look at, I don't think it's uncommon even in today's world for Clark Public Utilities or the phone company to say, you know what, we will upsize that and bring it to you, and we will only charge you this amount to do it because we know over the next 20 years for the amount of power you're going to be pulling through that, in the end result, it makes sense. If somebody walked in today, though, and said, I need 3 million gallons a day, no, we couldn't produce that for them.
I'm frankly not so much concerned about the DOE water use permit as I am just a complete hypothetical. Suppose somebody wanted 100,000 gallons a day in an area, say on the backside of Woodburn Hill, which is in our service area but not inside the city limits. We don't have the capacity to deliver that. We do have the capacity to produce it. The problem is that we do not have the infrastructure up on Woodburn Hill that would allow us to distribute that water or even to get it up the hill
Today,
today.
Sharp Microelectronics, when they went in, and even, excuse me, not Sharp, Hewlett-Packard pulls their water from the city of Camas, not from the city of Vancouver and not from Clark Public Utilities. When they sited that plant out there, well outside the city of Camas, there was no infrastructure there as well.
So I just want to be clear for the public record that if that would happen, it would not be an obligation of the city to produce that infrastructure. That the developer or the customer would have the obligation to pay for that particular infrastructure, or at least a major part of it. I want to be clear that I think it would be wrong for people on G Street to be paying for water capacity on the backside of Woodburn Hill that they would never use.
No, I would agree, and I believe that to be correct. And that's why we also, if it ended up costing them $10 million to run that water line out there, they may look at it and say that's a reasonable number. By the way, can we reclaim any of that? And at that point, even through those developer agreements, that's when we start entertaining the ideas of latecomers agreements and that type of stuff to pay them back, not to pay us back.
Right.
Because we need to get paid back for what we need. However, if we choose to upsize all of that to run things like hydrants out there or any of that while we're doing the same work, I'm pretty sure all of that is on our bill, not on their bill.
Yeah, we actually have several of those agreements in place where developers paid for big pieces of infrastructure, and as those areas are developed, they're reimbursed. Latecomer agreements are a typical way of doing that, although LIDs are another way. That's
Dave?
all.
Dave?
What's the impact on the facility, our water facility revenue requirements of doing all this?
Yeah, it's, we actually consulted with FCS and looked at it, and we don't see an impact to rates whatsoever with these changes, so if that answers your question.
It does, thank you. And briefly, succinctly, thank you.
Other items from council? Okay, moving on to CDBG grant opportunities.
So yes, thank you, Mayor Guard. Each year at this time we apply for what's called community development block grants. For those of you that are new to the council, we're required to have 2 public meetings before we submit our application. And so tonight we just want to go through the process with you and just talk a little bit about it. And next week, if it's the council's pleasure, there will be an action to set the public hearing for December 3rd. So first of all, if we have, the project recommendation from staff, and then likely scoring, and that's some of the criteria that we use to evaluate these projects even before we apply for them. And then the next steps, and then just some questions if you have those. So definition, CDBG, the Community Development Block Grant. I got this right off of Wikipedia, so, but I thought this was a good definition here. One of the longest running programs, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development funds local community development activities. CDBG grants are subject to less federal oversight and are largely used at the discretion of the state and local governments and their sub-guarantees. So when you look at a CDBG grant, it's not a grant that has to be in our capital facility plan, our transportation capital facility plan. So that's gives us a little more leeway on CDBG. So here's the project list right here. This is actually one project, and when we think about sidewalks, we think about connectivity for the most part, and where's it going. This will actually connect to Elizabeth Park, and then really it gives us some real good connections to our downtown area. And I know that some of the businesses through the WISP program, have asked me specifically about getting pedestrians from the north part of the city into our downtown, and this makes some key connections here. So this is one project, and like I said, it connects the park and in our downtown. So this is just a map of the area. You've got I Street, H Street, you've got Washougal River Road there, a connection, and then down there on 20th Street as well. So all these little pieces are not there now, will be added and really add some connectivity, like I said, to the park and then downtown. So this is likely grant scoring. Like I said, we evaluate these before we apply for the grant, and we look at location. Is it in the low income area that's required by CDBG? Complexity. Are there power poles in the vicinity? Is the street wide enough? Is there curb and gutter there already? Does it? And then also cost. We want to make sure that we have a CDBG project that's right around $300,000 because that's what they fund. So we're hoping to get enough into it that we get to that $300,000 limit there. And then connectivity, we talked a little bit about that. We want to make sure that it connects one sidewalk to another sidewalk. And so I'll go to next steps. And then council action on November 19th will be to set a public hearing for December 3rd. So that'll be the next thing that we do. And then we hold a public hearing on December 3rd. And then we actually apply for the grant in early December or mid-December. And then there'll be a CDBG board meeting. And actually, David Scott is a member of the CDBG board, and I just wanted to ask David if he wanted to talk a little bit about the CDBG board and what they do.
Thank you, Jim. Just briefly for the newer members of the council, the CDBG funds are appropriated by the federal government, and then they go out to counties. They also go out to cities if the cities are large enough to be an entitlement community on their own. The only city in Clark County that has that status is the city of Vancouver. They administer their own CDBG program. But the rest of unincorporated Clark County and then all of the other cities in the county fall under the umbrella of the county. And so that county board of commissioners actually ultimately dispenses the grant dollars out into the communities within the county. However, as part of that process, there is a board that is comprised of members of all of the cities and includes a member of the Board of County Commissioners. Right now that's Commissioner Stewart. And the seat that I hold is actually the mayor's seat, and he's designated to me to sit as his alternate. Camas also uses its administrator in that role. Yakult uses its mayor. La Center uses a staff person as well. So we meet, and the staff helps us with a scoring based on lots of regulations at the federal level about how things are scored. There's some of it is discretionary. We tour around the county, and then the board makes a recommendation on the priorities for funding. The applications always exceed the allocation that the county receives from the federal government. So it's very difficult. There are many, many worthy projects in the community, and as you know, last year we received funding at the highest level that they fund for 2 projects in our community, which was outstanding. It's a great group, and they make the tough decisions, and we vote, and then we forward that on to the Board of County Commissioners. They make the final decision. It's my understanding that they really take very seriously and generally follow the recommendation of the advisory group. So that's the last part of the process, and then those decisions are made. So we hope to be successful again, and one of the ways that we can help to ensure our success, although it doesn't guarantee our success, but one of the biggest point getters is the commitment of the community to the project, and that manifests itself in terms of our match. Last year, both of our projects scored maximum points for match, and it's our goal again through our budgeting process, using funds that you have appropriated in the, or that you have set aside in the Transportation Capital Facilities Fund. There's adequate funding in there for us to be able to get maximum scoring again for match, and therefore we hope very much to be successful with this project in that board evaluation process. That's it for what the board does.
So we should know sometime, we're thinking about March next year, so how we scored and what projects will move forward. And then with that, just wanted to open it up for any questions you may have.
Council? Paul?
How close to the 300,000 are we?
Very close. You know, it's preliminary right now as far as our estimate goes. So it's we don't have complete design completed at this point. So we are talking real close to 300,000 with all of these combined sidewalk improvements.
Thank you.
Karen?
I didn't really see the one about 20th. Is there a crosswalk there as well too, over to Beauty Temptations?
There is not a crosswalk there. Now CDBG may or may not cover a crossing. We've talked about a crossing there.
Okay.
And we've actually got some very good information as far as a crossing there and what we might install. There's some crossing lights that we'd have to install there, and then a center haven for pedestrians, because it is, you know, an arterial there on E Street, so we have to make it safe for pedestrians. We can't just, you know, stripe a crosswalk through there. But we are looking into that, and we may see that this next year as well.
Okay, perfect, thanks.
Dave?
Jim, what are the quid pro quos from our side? And I'm thinking of things like road diets, bicycle lanes, traffic calming, congestion producing measures, the types of things that we would be required to do.
There, you know, I don't know specifically about, you know, all the requirements, but we do have to make sure that it's up to ADA standards. So we have to put the ADA ramps in place. You know, when we build these sidewalks, we have to make sure that the width is there to accommodate a wheelchair, things like that. But as far as the requirements go, not too many on any projects. We're going to have stormwater requirements. So, you know, there is pervious or impervious surface, excuse me, that we'll be installing. So there will be stormwater requirements. Now, you know, how that all works out and how we have to treat that stormwater. I don't think it's specific. It's not specific to CDBG. On any project, we'd have to do that. So.
Okay, so it's not like the E Street project.
No.
One thing to keep in mind, even though the the diagram kind of took the streets and that type of stuff into account. These are just sidewalk projects. These aren't complete
Right.
rebuilds of the streets. These are not major upgrades to the streets themselves, just sidewalks where they don't exist.
I just don't trust DC and Olympia not to impose some sort of quid pro quo on us.
Understood.
Thanks, Judy.
Other questions from council? Jennifer?
Question, CDBG, the $300,000, what's our match?
It would be approximately half of that,
Okay, so
so,
about 150.
right.
And I noticed on your diagram, you've got south side sidewalks only on H and I, correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay. Is there a reason for that, and the property owners aware that we're considering this? And
The reason is really, the reason is connectivity. So we wanted to connect what was existing. You know, we've got sidewalk on both sides on that side, and we wanted to connect that together.
okay. And the issue with the homeowners, property owners?
We will give notifications, we'll have a public process and things like that. You know, we only install sidewalk that's, you know, in our right of way, so,
Of course.
you know, but yeah, we will definitely, just like what we're doing out on Addy Street, we will coordinate with the property owners well in advance of the project starting. Yeah, remember, this is just the application process right now, so we won't even start, you know, construction for, you know, a year or so now, so, 2014.
Thank you.
Other items from council? Okay, Joe?
Why is everything numbered 1?
It's all one project.
It's all one project.
That's right.
Boy, had to get my mind around that one. Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't want to say 1, 2, 3, because we think they were different projects.
A, B,
so.
C, D.
Yeah, it could be.
Thank you.
Any other items for Jim? Any questions? Okay. Jim, thank you very much. Moving to finance.
Good evening. We wanted to just touch base regarding the budget and provide updates as to where we're at and what the process is going to be, and then go through any updates that we've done since we last presented it to you, and then open it up for questions. In the packet, we had 2 draft resolutions, which were the property tax resolutions for the ad valorem taxes, one for the general fund and one for the EMS fund. Those are, as we discussed in the budget presentation, those are including the full amount that we will have access to, which includes the banked capacity that we discussed pretty detailed at the presentation. And it's in the format that I believe the assessor is looking for. I had Paul look them over, Paul Lewis, and he agreed with the format. And I am going to run them by the assessors as well. We still have not gotten final dollars from the assessor yet for what the ad valorem should be. And based on an email that we received this evening, it looks like it may be delayed. So I'm going to follow up with that and see what the implications of that are. Our plan is to proceed with the resolutions that we have drafted in the Dropbox in the packet, because you always approve the resolution slightly higher than what your legal limit is. That way you don't miss out on catch-up revenues from the past or anything like that, because if you set the resolution too low and you hit that number, then you won't be able to collect any additional, even if it's for past property taxes, because that's the number that you set, is my understanding of how that works. So you always adopt that resolution a little bit higher than what you put in the budget, because you're always going to come down to what your highest lawful levy is. That's kind of been our pattern. currently with the 310 and being capped. Also in your packet was the updated budget ordinance. We've made some very minor changes, so I just wanted to provide the ordinance for you. And then just a reminder that we're going to have the hearings next Monday for both property tax resolutions and the budget ordinance. The resolutions we need to have adopted, I believe, still by November 30th, even though we aren't getting final numbers from the assessors likely by then. I'm going to confirm that again with the county, and I'll get back to you on that. There was some indications in the email from the assessor's office that perhaps that deadline goes away to where we could push those off if you so chose. But I'm playing by the rules of the November 30 and am going to ask for those to be approved, not posted because of resolutions, but read by title only and pass in the usual manner. Thank you. I don't have my little cheat sheet. The ordinance, based on feedback from council for the budget, we are going to postpone to December 3rd to ensure the full council is available. But we will still hold the public hearings as planned. They don't need to be consecutive, so that's fine. Next slide. So do you have questions or comments on the resolutions, ordinances?
Okay, Joe?
Did you say we will push it back to December 3rd? Because it says we can. Did you say we will?
We're going. That was the direction that I was given. So I'm not planning on asking you to pass the ordinance next week, but we'll re-present it. We'll continue it to the 3rd and then present it at that point. But we will still hold the public hearing.
Okay.
Dave?
Resolutions will be passed next week or
Correct.
wait till the 3rd?
I am presenting them to be approved next week,
The
unless.
ad valorem resolutions.
Correct.
And what's the reason for not being able to delay that till the 3rd?
By state statute, they have to be approved by November 30th. And with the layout of our meetings, we would have to call a special meeting on the 26th if we chose to delay it past the standard council meeting of the 19th.
We are meeting on the 26th for a workshop, right?
Correct, but not to do action.
Is there any problem with calling a special meeting for that?
Short answer is no. Is there a reason that you wouldn't be prepared to pass the ad valorem resolutions next week?
Yes, I'll be in Kauai.
Understood. The ad valorem resolutions are not the budget itself. It just sets forth the tax rate that the city is forwarding on to the county to collect on our behalf.
Very important issues. And I'd like to weigh in on those.
To the chair, it doesn't matter at all. We have a significant problem, as we did in 2009, if we get to the point of November 30th and don't have ad valorem taxes or resolutions passed. We don't get to collect any money. It's a slight problem.
So what would it be in order for a motion to come from the council? Say we set a special meeting?
No, wouldn't even need to be that from the council. I just don't want to, if we've got a consensus of the council that you want to hold that discussion off to the 26th, I don't have a problem doing that. You just need to know that we're going right up against a deadline. If for some reason you get into some discussions that the 26th, that doesn't happen, the 27th comes around, the 28th, the 29th, and the 30th. So, Paul?
We actually can't do a motion in a workshop. I have no problem specifically with the 26th, but like you, I'm a little concerned that come hell and or high water, we could be in deep doo-doo if for some reason or other we cannot meet on the 26th. Fire, flood, whatever. And I mean, that said, you know, I'll be here the 26th.
Okay, Joe?
I'm willing to support Dave's request. I understand it could be fire or brimstone or who knows what, but I think we should, under the circumstances, it is such a big issue to all of us that we should respect his wishes, let him be here, or take us all to Hawaii and hold a meeting there. So that's just my
There's
input.
4 families there, so the meeting has to be in Washington.
Ah, shucks.
So many rules.
So many rules. I like that.
Well, I guess the biggest overlying question, and again, it doesn't matter to us at a staff level at all. I have not heard anyone on the council yet come forward, and we haven't gotten completely into the budget ordinance portion of it for this evening. I've not heard anybody say, lower the taxes for the next year. Quite frankly, and I don't want to diminish it, your passage of the ad valorem resolution for this city for 2013 is pretty much a housekeeping item. Unless you're willing to reach into reserves and start funding things in a large way, we're going out for what we can go out for, and that's it, because there is no additional. Isn't there one consideration that we take, though? I've seen other Washington legislative bodies struggle with a 1% increase. Isn't that one thing that is some policy thing that we take up with this?
We
Correct,
don't-
and that's built into this now.
We
That's what I'm
don't-
saying, I haven't heard anybody yet.
There's no 1%.
We're capped.
We're capped at our rate.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
The- Your ad valorem levy in 2013 will be less than your levy in 2012.
So if I can put a fine point on it, no matter what we do, the the property tax revenue to the city for 2013 will be less than it was in 2012.
That's correct.
Correct. Yeah, that was in your materials when we started the entire budget process. And again, I don't want to diminish the role of the council in doing that.
Are we banking that 1% as part of this?
Because we're at the cap, we can't bank it.
We can't bank it.
We confirm that. There has to be room between what you're setting and what you're allowed to set in order to bank. The reason why we could do it in the past was because we were in the lid lift scenario. So that's why we were able to do it when it wasn't there in the prior years.
So it really is, unless we want to slash property taxes.
We're already slashing them.
Well, I mean, really, we go beyond where we are. It really is almost a ministerial action we're taking here. You know, the only thing I can think of is, why don't we see how we feel 19th?
I was going to say, we can always leave it on the agenda, and if you choose to table it over to, or table it and not take it up that night, you most assuredly will see a special meeting being called by me for the 26th.
We have published the public hearing, so regardless, those will occur
Right.
on the 19th.
Right.
Just for clarification.
Both of these hearings were set by the council on November 5th, right? You set both of the hearings on November 5th. And we are required to have the ad valorem hearing by then.
Correct.
Yeah, the hearing has to take place next week, no matter what. I think both of them, actually.
Well, since we set them, yes.
Right.
Okay, so for the moment, we'll leave them on the agenda, and if next week you choose to table the discussion, then we'll have another path that we know that we'll be taking the following Monday. Does that come close?
Not for me. Because it opens up the possibility of a vote next Monday. And that's what I'm looking to avoid. I'd like to participate in that discussion.
Okay. Sure.
I'm just curious to know what concerns there are. Can you voice those now, or can you not?
I don't think I'm prepared at this time to voice them. I'm still struggling through the budget. Dave Scott and I have had a a 45-minute conversation on the phone about some of my concerns. Some of those are being resolved at this time. And rather than bring them up and find out they're already resolved, I'd rather wait until the 26th when I have all that information and I can focus on the things that aren't resolved. But I appreciate your looking for common ground here.
Excuse me, Councilman, are your concerns, are they on the budget, or are they on the setting the levy?
They're on both, because one, the two interact. The taxes and the budget, the taxes fund the budget.
Portion of it.
Well, we're almost to the point though where the taxes are going to be what the taxes are going to be. I mean,
Yeah.
That was my point, and
Yeah.
unless it's the action of this body to take it down, in which case we need to start rewriting a budget. And we have not heard that, I don't believe, from any member of the council, that you want to take action to reduce the budget further than, or our tax levying capabilities further than what they already are this year.
Yeah. To try and put a fine point on it, it's not so much a question of whether we're going to reduce taxes. We are. We do not have a choice. The only question is whether we would lower them even further. And that's the only question that this ad valorem deals with. The present budget is already taking money in excess of tax revenue. And so
And it's that issue that I specifically would like to address. That's one of my issues.
well, my point would be that lowering ad valorem taxes even further makes that problem even worse. Because of the oddities of Washington statute, we are required by law to decrease our taxes this year. We do not have any choice on that.
I understand.
Okay, so I'll call for any other questions, any other comments in regard to the ad valorem taxes and the resolution that that involves. Okay, let's talk about some budget updates.
Before Jennifer jumps into that part of the presentation, just so that the council has all of the information relative to Councilman Shoemaker's participation. MRSC has an opinion that indicates that an absent council member may participate in a meeting of the council if so authorized by the council by using different technology like a speakerphone or other types of technology, and assuming that a quorum can be made by those that are physically present. Some councils have rules that actually provide for that. I don't know that you would have to make a rule. We just throw that out. That opportunity is available.
And has been used in the past, but not recently.
Do we have the equipment to do it?
We can set up a phone. We could potentially use our iPads as well.
Like Skype or something like that?
FaceTime.
Mr. Mayor, I can see a willingness to do this, and I appreciate that. The wherewithal to do it sounds a little complicated. It's going to involve training on how to do it that we don't have time to do properly. and I don't want to impose this on the staff at a time when we're struggling with budget issues. I will withdraw my request to hold the ad valorem resolutions, and I will focus my comments on the budget itself.
Okay.
They aren't disappointed. I was hoping to see you in a Hawaiian shirt.
I was looking forward to that lay.
It's underneath, so I can just rip it off.
Sunglasses.
Come on, now.
Well, it'd only be 4 o'clock in the afternoon over there. You could be on the beach and do this. Or by the pool.
With my time.
Jennifer?
Okay. So with the 2013 budget, we have not made any major changes. We've done a few refinements. Some of the bigger of the not major refinements I've listed on the screen here. I have uploaded a new revised budget into the Dropbox. I was not able to bookmark it before putting it in there this afternoon, but the page numbers here are the page numbers that reflect in the actual budget. So the Park Impact Fee Fund on page 54 of your budget, we have added, that's the, oh, I said Park Impact, sorry. Thought I said PIF. It's late, sorry. We have added a recommended donation in support of the Fishback Stadium Turf Project, a payment of $10,000. We've run that through MRSC to ensure that we can legally use PIF funds for property that is not ours. And they looked at our code, and as long as we have an agreement with the school district that allows for community use of the field, which I've been told they currently do allow outside private citizens to use the field, that we would be able to spend those funds on that as it's part of our community enrichment program, recreation program. We would have to add it to our parks capital facility plan. That would be the one thing that we would have to do before we could share those funds with the school district. But that is included in the PIF budget for your consideration on page 54.
Joyce?
I have a question about this, because that kind of jumped out at me, and you're saying that's legal, but have we done that before? Taking city funds and putting into another...
We currently have the Schmidt ball fields.
In the Danielson soccer fields?
Right, in the Danielson soccer fields, thank you, Mayor. And we have an interlocal agreement with the school district regarding that. And I think we have to have an interlocal agreement as well for the fields.
And it came out of the parks budget.
Came through the parks budget. Part of it was done through grants, part of it was done through city contributions, but it's done on, both of them were done on school district property, so that there was no purchase of the land itself.
But this is coming through impact fees, which is a little different funding, isn't it?
It's restricted in its use. It's not general fund money. It is the impact fee money that's used to support recreation programs for the additional.
And
I'm not arguing with it, I'm just
No,
curious, I mean,
and
I'm
I'm not
just
sure
curious
that
about
park
it.
impact fees weren't used as part of that funding mechanism when those fields were built.
my
I have to
memory,
double check on that, but I believe that was the case.
my memory is that they were.
Yeah.
At least for a portion of it.
So did you say it was 10,000?
Correct.
Thank you.
And that doesn't, it doesn't put us negative or anything in the PIF fund, so it'll be a great investment. The bond projects for the capital, or the water, sewer, storm, bond fund projects, we added additional projects on there. We've been refining the CIP for spending those bond funds in the appropriate time frame that's required per the bond ordinance that we passed. So we added additional projects in there. We probably won't get to them all in 13, but we just want to have them in there appropriated so that we can keep those projects moving along in the process. And that is on page 77 of your budget. And then as we just discussed, the CDBG projects, we've listed those additional sidewalk projects on that page as well, so that we can expedite those projects should they be approved by council through the budget process. The mayor can sign those agreements. and get those projects going. And that's detailed out on page 82 of the packet. And those are the major non-material changes that we've made to the budget. We've made a few other refinements that aren't material in any nature, just housekeeping and cleanup with titles and those types of things. But other than that, I want to open it up for questions.
This is a lot of your opportunity in addition to next week to weigh in on the questions of the budget itself, some of the items in the budget, and/or get Jennifer pointed towards items that you may want to discuss in more detail for next week, so.
And we have all the department heads here, eager to answer any questions in your
Most of the department heads.
89-page document that I know you've gone through fine-tooth.
I'll surprise you.
You'll surprise me.
Question?
Jennifer?
Under, can we go page by page? Or?
Sure.
Awesome. Page 17. Under Mayor and Administration Preliminary Budget, I see there's a rather large number under miscellaneous executive training. Just trying to figure out what that is.
It's not executive training. It's the strategic planning initiative money that we put aside. We put it under the miscellaneous code and it pulled through as executive training, I'm not sure. So I can correct that typo, but that is the 20,000 that we've identified for the strategic planning initiatives.
Okay. Clears that one up. Okay. I have a few more. Is it still my turn?
Yep.
Okay, great. Let's see. Human resources.
Your page number?
Oh, I'm sorry, page 19.
Okay.
I noticed there's a decline in professional services and an increase in tuition reimbursement. Just curious to know what the logic is on that.
In terms of the professional services, we budgeted a large amount of money last year just because of contract negotiations and the concern that we potentially could go into interest arb. We don't have that concern for next year, but yet there's always the gray cloud, if you will, that hangs over us in terms of risk management and legal fees, and that's why I've still got a good-sized budget there for professional services that would be used primarily for legal services. And the other question was on the tuition reimbursement. You recall last year, or this year, was the first year that we had the a formal tuition reimbursement program for individuals going through the bachelor's or master's program, and kind of came up with an ad hoc number, if you will, to use for 2012, but for 2013 we went through the formal process, received the applications in from 3 individuals who wish to go through the program, and this budgeted amount would cover those 3 individuals to go through that schooling for next year.
Okay. How many individuals did we have for 2012?
1.
Is there a carryover then from the year? Because that was 27,500 budgeted and only 1 person. Yep.
I don't believe we used it all, but I can get those exact figures for you.
Okay. I was just curious. Okay, let's see. Actually, I didn't have as many questions this year as I had last year. So, good job.
Hooray. Yahoo!
All right, Judicial Court, page 35.
I'm sorry, page number?
35.
Thank you.
I was just looking at the prosecuting attorney figures. Seems to be going up, and I was just curious why.
Yeah, I questioned that one, but questioned it if we've moved it up enough. I had a discussion with the prosecutor this last week. They are right now filing in excess of 200 felony cases every single month, spread across the county, and we have just felony cases from the prosecutor side, which don't fall into our side, but for our prosecuting attorney that we have on the district court side, their filings are up more than that.
That's insane. I mean, so with we took it down a bit last year, it looks like. Did we have to supplement? Was
Not
that
yet.
an issue?
Not yet, but your budget cuts are just catching up from the state level.
And it's a general fund department, so it'll be, if it were to go over a little bit, enough departments are coming under that we shouldn't have to do a budget amendment. But that's why we wanted to increase it for 13, was to ensure that we're capturing the true cost of what it costs to run the court side.
Wow. And with, basically our revenues decreasing.
Mhm.
That's
Or-
interesting.
Or some
where
of those exact same things that are falling
Right.
under there.
Interesting.
Can I ask who we use for our misdemeanor prosecutions?
Well, we use Don English's office. Scott Russin is our,
English Lane, Scott Russin is the prosecutor.
unless we have conflicts.
Do we recoup some money from these prosecutions? There's usually court costs and fees we get.
Yeah, none for our costs. We've approached I've approached county judges twice on that, and both times have been told that they're really not at any point envisioning entertaining those types of discussions. They don't feel that any of the folks going through, and I believe that that is the rub, any of the folks going through the court process can afford anything anyway, so they wouldn't be collecting anything. I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all.
DUIs, a lot of them can afford.
Yeah. Legally, yes, we can. It's still up to the judicial system to levy those, whether it's set amounts, whether it's actual costs, whether it's any of that portion. It's up to the judges to still individually make a choice if they're going to do that. And so far, the indication of the two lead judges is it's not something they're willing to look at.
The district court judges.
Mhm.
Well, maybe this is maybe beyond the purview of this discussion. Maybe it's time we talk about it in municipal court.
Oh, we are. We are. We have been for the last year and a half.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, there's some discussion that, it may be a more appropriate time to start looking at that, given the additional cuts that we know are coming at us and the additional recoups that may be coming from the county side as well. The two police chiefs, if you ever want to get up to speed on where the rest of the council is on that, the two police chiefs are the ones that are leading that effort with discussions directly with Judge Higginson.
Municipal court.
We kind of sort of have one now, but it's administered by the county.
It's just the district, it's a district court, just administers on municipal court.
But we pick up all the costs of it. So it's in joint facilities, all that type of stuff. But the two chiefs have been working very well with Judge Higginson directly and with the district court staff and all of those discussions. We've each learned something in the process, including the county. They now understand better what our concerns were. So.
Yep. All right. Page 37, animal control. Just curious to know about yet more increases in professional services. That's not the Humane Society, what is that?
It is the per dog charge.
It is?
Mhm.
Okay, yeah, because it's going up at Southwest, or is it?
We're
Or still negotiating
in
that? Okay.
discussions with them currently to try to toe the line on that. They're not being as responsive as we'd hoped, but we are continuing our discussion with them to try to stay at that 120. I don't know that's going to happen, but we will revise the contract in some fashion to ensure that we're holding the line as best we can in that line item.
Okay. And we pay an equal amount to West Columbia Gorge, correct?
Currently, we pay 120 to each
Right.
group. Our current contract with Southwest does go up to the 132.50 for 13. We haven't, West Columbia's contract goes through 12, so we have to re-up that one. There are considerations for West Columbia as they don't pay rent. We pay the utilities and those types of things that we're taking into consideration. So we may keep, our proposal may be to keep them at the 120 per dog and then renegotiate our contract with Southwest to only take animals that our animal control officers bring. Currently, the way our contract reads, any citizen that brings a dog to Southwest,
Dog, cat, anything else?
yeah, well, no, not dog, cat, citizen, we've restricted it to just dogs as to, that's what our codes call for. But any animal that our officers bring, we pay for. So that was the delineation between the two. We're going to hopefully, since they won't budge on the 132.50, we're going to revise it to where they're only accepting animals from our animal control officers, and they're deferring everybody else back to West Columbia, as that's our shelter of choice. They haven't replied to that correspondence yet, so we'll see how that negotiation goes. But there's some months where citizens, either out of convenience as it's closer, are taking the animals there, which is further for our citizens, as we've discussed, and we're paying the full amount for the dogs, to whereas if they were here closer, we could keep those funds going with our current arrangement with the shelter.
Okay. Have we discussed next year's contract with the West Columbia Gorge Humane Society?
Yes.
Have we talked to them about
Right, Chief,
payments and?
Chief talked to them, basically said that our proposal will be to basically roll the agreement for another year, same agreement.
Mhm. And they're in agreement? We will have a signed contract?
Yes, that's my understanding.
Oh, okay. And then just, it's not much, but this little travel budget thing, what is that? For the animal control? We never had one.
Yeah.
$300?
I believe that's the training for the officers?
I believe it's the training. They haven't had training opportunities in the past, and in 12, they did do some training, which was very beneficial with aggressive dogs and you know, other types of trainings that they can go to ensure their safety.
Okay. Ooh, yeah. Page 39, community development. I am curious to know where we stand with our former community development director, now looking at interim community development director, and what is happening with, are we going to?
Could you speak up a little further?
Oh, I'm sorry, Paul. I was just curious to know what's happening with the former community development director and now our interim community development director for 2013.
So we have an employee on administrative leave that expires early in 2013. We are still appropriating that position.
I see that.
We are not paying salary for that position. So those funds are just staying in the general fund, but we're not eliminating that position. We are deploying our planning manager as an interim community development director. We are using some of that salary savings, as you know, for support in strategic planning. We have a part-time person that works with Trevor, so a little bit of the salary savings from that sort of vacancy is being applied, and then we're also kind of counting that savings as covering any professional service costs that we've encountered for the strategic planning project. So that's all the information that we have. We will know early next year what will happen with that employee, and then based upon what happens with that, we'll take the next steps as appropriate.
Well, it's an interesting situation, it really is, and I would have to say that our community development department has been running quite well, minus one very full-time staff member. So, I mean, it's an interesting situation.
Well, Mitch is doing a great job,
He's
and his
fantastic.
team is doing a great job. What we, and maybe not noticeable to the community or to the councils, there's a number of longer-term planning type projects that we've basically shelved because we don't have the ability to do that. Mitch is attending to them as he can, but he's focused on those projects that are right in front of him, development review you know, specific projects coming in, they need to be reviewed for our codes. He's been able to work on some of the development agreement stuff, but we have obligations around keeping our codes up to date, obligations around our comprehensive plan, and many other types of efforts that we want to undertake in the more long-range planning realm that we've really scaled back on or have shelved in the interim period because we reduced 50% our professional planning staff. So it has had an impact, but the timing has been such that it's been a manageable impact, but it's not something we can sustain. The timing of the leave and our decision making around that, it's going to be at that point where we've got to deal with that situation. So it'll be soon.
We do have a city administrator who has some experience in this area.
You can ask Mitch. I pitch in maybe more than he wants.
Yeah. I don't want to step over lines and toes, and I don't want to get into, you know, the executive side of things, but we are looking at the budget. So I just want to say I really like what the administration has done with the finance department, that I think that the restructuring was well done and, you know, could happen for community development, maybe. And I wouldn't object. What else? Let's see. Okay, page 41. Which page? Page 41. I was just looking at the engineering. Let's see. Okay, I just wanted to know if the 2013 numbers for the increase in the $75,000 for professional services and general engineering, if that's based on actuals. I mean, I think we budgeted because we had a no.
For the 75,000 budget for
Correct.
12 or for 13?
No, for both 12 and 13. I noticed that it was the same carried over. And I just know that this is a new department, and we're kind of working out costs and all of that.
Right.
I just didn't know if it was based on actuals.
It's not based on actuals. We haven't completed the first year. In the
Yeah.
past, that line item was 50,000 for community development, 50,000 for the community development pass-through engineering charges, and then up to 50,000 for the general engineering citywide. When we hired our own city engineer, we cut the engineering side, the general engineering, by 25,000. So we're proposing the same for 13 so that we can see how 12 actually works out, because we don't have a full year under our belt yet. And then obviously if we don't use it all, then it's in the reserve at the end of the year.
Right.
But we will be able to refine that number probably closer to actuals for 14 once we have a full year of 12.
Okay. Parks, page 43. I see you're adding back in some summer help from the 2012 budget. That's the regular salary summer. From 2012 to 2013, we're bringing that up. We have something that didn't work out for us, the cuts, correct?
Yeah, and I think staffing is always a concern for the Parks Department. We have 2 FTEs in the department right now, and we are adding areas as well. So the summer salaries are a way that we can keep our level of service in place.
Did we
The
get
overall
some complaints
bottom
from
line,
is this public, is this like kind of a backlash from the public, or is this just something you noticed within the department?
No, it's just we have a targeted budget, so the bottom line is actually less than, or actually the same as last year, a little bit more than last year, but our target was to come in at a certain rate, and that's what the manager and myself, we determined that we needed seasonal staff to keep up with the workload.
Yeah, I just see that there's a lot of large fluctuations from 2012 to 2013 in the parks budget. I
Could
mean,
it-
some up, some down. It's interesting.
Is it due to the improvements along East Street and all of the foliage added there?
That is part of it, yes.
Part of our city downtown is now maturing as far as foliage goes. It takes a lot of maintenance. I see that guy working like a dog. Every day I drive to work, he's out there picking those weeds. I just wonder if he wants a side job.
We've also basically added 2 parks, which used to be Blackberries,
There
Care
you go.
Park and Heartwood. And so they will require maintenance, whereas before they were just Blackberries and
Just go pick those.
Okay. I'm just being particular now, so. I don't think I had a whole lot on the funds, the fee funds. Let's see. I didn't think I'm actually pretty much done, so, thank you.
Items from other council members? Jen, anything else you can think of?
I don't think so. Thank you. If you have questions, anytime between now and, what is it? It's already Tuesday. And the 19th, feel free to come in. I know I've spent some time with Joyce and Connie Jo, but I'm available. Other department heads are available. I'm more than happy to walk through, and if things don't make sense or if you need assistance.
I just want to make the comment that we're not sitting here later, all of you, because Jennifer very graciously had Connie, Joe, and I, and went through page by page, which was a great deal of help. So,
Question. We have another opportunity to have a discussion on the 27th, though, correct? Because
You do next week as well. Your
The
public hearing
public
itself is
hearings
next
will be
week.
held the 19th for the budget and for the taxes.
We-
And then the 26th, we can provide opportunity for more questions. And then
The third?
we'll ask for the ordinance to be passed, posted, and published on the 3rd.
okay,
So you have many more opportunities.
many more.
I'm gonna hold off till the 3rd.
Any clues would be ever so gratefully accepted.
Dave, anything else from yourself in regards to budget?
Nope, no,
Okay.
just very minor changes like Jen mentioned between what we presented on November 5th and what is then loaded into your Dropbox tonight, just those 3 items that were on the slide. And
Okay.
just extend my invitation as well. The staff is available to you, that's why we're here, so we're happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay, with that, we'll move to public comment. Don, anything that you'd like to say? No, not at all? Okay. Under Mayor's report, I really just have one item for you for any members who will be here on Friday and Saturday that are looking for some entertainment. We have our turkey bingo down at the fire hall put on by the volunteer fire department, as well as our paid fire department from both Washougal and Camas. Lots of games of chance and only turkeys to be won, so. Items from
What
council
time
members.
is the turkey?
I want to say they start at 6.
7.
Is it 7?
7 o'clock.
And it's at the fire
Oh,
department
Chief,
on-
you're so. Never mind. Sitting here going, there's nobody here from the fire department anymore.
Oh, he walked out just in your,
So 7 to midnight both nights?
7 to midnight. Odds are better, like from 11 o'clock to midnight, but
Odds are a lot better.
you didn't hear that.
Items from
And-
council members,
where is it held?
right at the fire station,
This one,
right here. Joyce?
I have something I learned today, and I'm just passing out. 0.00915 of our property taxes in Clark County go to the Veterans Emergency Fund, and it's a help for indigent veterans or that need help. And I just thought that was sort of a nice thing, and it's like $2.29 a year on a $250,000 home. So it isn't hitting anybody very hard, but they have a fund of $500 and some thousand that they can help our veterans with. So I thought it was just a nice little trivial piece of information.
Paul?
Thank you for that. I didn't know that.
Nobody does.
And thank you, Jennifer, for taking the time to go through that in detail. I learned things that I wouldn't have learned otherwise. I do appreciate it. Thursday, I will be actually in CTAC. The Association of Washington Cities is having the Legislative Committee meeting. Most of what we're talking about ends up being very, very specific city issues. If you're curious about what the agenda is, I would encourage you to go to the awcnet.org website and look up those issues. If you have anything that you would like for me to take up there with me, please don't hesitate to call or write. I will be leaving tomorrow night. The meeting starts at 9:30, so I'll find an inexpensive motel most of the way up, and so I'm bright and sunny when I get there. But so anyone who has anything they'd like to add, I would love to hear from you.
Other members? Connie Jo?
John Russell's going to be in town this Thursday night. He's making a presentation for the new organization he works for. It's called Students for Life, and there's going to be a reception in Vancouver. It starts at 6:30, so if you're interested, talk to me. He's going to present the different things that are going on in the high school and the college campuses for young women that find themselves in a pregnancy situation. I heard a statistic from Young Life, and I have to verify what it means, so I just want to throw it out before I even do the verification, that they said that I don't know if it's per capita, I'm not sure the answer to this, which is why it's not a valid statement, but nevertheless, Washougal has a reputation for having more high school pregnancies than any place in the state. Has anybody heard any of those statements?
Not even close.
Not even close.
And that's what I'm saying, is it some kind of a ratio they're working on? I don't know. I need to find that out.
If somebody's out there with that out there, I would like to know that it was well substantiated.
Yeah, I'm gonna call some people to find out. Hopefully that's a rumor that was misunderstood by the person that shared it with me. It wasn't Young Life that told me, it was somebody who thought she had heard it from them. So anyways, John's gonna be here to talk about pregnancy on the campuses.
Tomorrow at 1:30 here in the chamber is the AWC coal and rail congestion webinar. And we had one last week, and it's well done, and it's a good place to spend a couple hours and learn about that.
Okay. Any other items? We're adjourned.
Yeah, so I'll see you tomorrow.
Yes. I get to eat lunch with Kimberly Bachera tomorrow.
Last week you invited us to lunch, and I couldn't get.
Yeah, I know.
I know, so why are you giving us special